Hi, I'm Sully, and I'm making a game about my testimony of becoming a believer in Christ. Welcome to Devlog 1, where I finally actually make some progress that you can see. So it's been 2 weeks, or a sprint like I mentioned before, and I made a decent amount of progress actually. I didn't get as much as I wanted done, though I'm not really sure that'll ever happen, to be honest. The first thing I did this sprint was take my project that I made for my computer graphics class last semester and slapped it into this project. I then simplified the look a bit, just to make things easier to work with. Of course, this process only took me about 5 minutes because I just was grabbing files and assets from a different project. Just kidding, it took me like 2 days. So after finally getting that working, I tried making a boat controller. And as you can see, that worked out perfectly. So I discovered 2 problems with this approach. One, the player model on top of the boat doesn't really work out. It's nauseating for the player in first person, and the player weighs down the boat awkwardly, so when you move the boat, it just reacts weirdly. The other thing is that the boat pops above the waves, and the movement starts to get really clunky because I'm constantly changing the drag of the boat as it goes in and out of the waves. So it turns out the buoyancy really fights with the waves, and I spent a lot of time trying to get this working, but I couldn't figure it out. So then I remembered a game called Dredge. It's a fishing game that I would very much recommend, but I realized that in Dredge, a game I consider to have a very good boat controller and ocean system, doesn't really have big waves. In fact, I'm not even really convinced the boat has a buoyancy controller at all, because the waves really aren't big enough. Or at least this is what I originally thought until getting the footage of Dredge for this video. But yeah, the boat in Dredge clearly has buoyancy, and it sits on the top of the waves and doesn't go in and out of them. I don't really know why I thought this is how Dredge worked, but I got a decent idea out of it at least. But either way, I realized another approach is to have bigger waves far away from the player to give the feeling of the ocean, but then let the waves die down when they get around the player. This way there's no need for a buoyancy system for the boat, and the boat controller would be a lot smoother. I can still then use the buoyancy system for other objects in the ocean. I'll definitely need to circle back to this as I'm not entirely sure this is the best way of doing it, but for now at least I have a boat that moves on an ocean. This took me a little bit to get working, but with the help of my friend ChatGPT, I was able to finally get it working. No, it runs horribly. So it turns out it's actually not the code for detecting the waves around the player that's making it horrible. It's actually just the dimension of the waves themselves that is really slow, because it's just a for loop, and a nested one at that. So the higher the dimension, the exponentially worse the performance. I looked into improving this, and it seems like a mixture of LOD, which is level of detail techniques, and illusion, like fog. But I left that for a future me to figure out because I actually need to figure out what the gameplay is going to look like before I mess around with trying to make things optimized. So after many iterations of ideas, I decided to go with this for now. You're a fisherman in a fishing league with a ranking system. Only problem is that you're pretty low in the ranks, and to increase in the ranks you have to catch fish, earn a certain amount of profit, catch a high enough rank fish, and maybe even more, or different stuff, I don't know. That's just what I thought of first. You can't get high rank fish without going to specific areas. That requires better equipment that you need to purchase for your boat, which you acquire by fishing, and so you get kind of this nice gameplay loop. Also, the whole game you're trying to find your brother through this fishing paper trail, because he's also a fisherman, as you know what rank he is, and therefore what fish he's trying to get, because the higher rank fish are only in certain areas, and anyway, and therefore you know where he needs to go, which is kind of the scene for the game. I made a really simple prototype for catching a fish based on the Dredge's fishing mechanic for now, which I definitely didn't do and then accidentally delete and have to do again because that would be really stupid. Anyway, I plan to change it later, but I just wanted to get a simple system working for this sprint so I can visually plan the story for the game a little easier, and I'll improve upon it in the next sprint. So that's pretty much it for now. The beginning of this sprint was a little slow, but I hope now that I've done a little more planning and gotten some visual progress, and I'll be able to pick up a bit of speed. Honestly, I'm really excited where this game is going. I hope in the next devlog I'm able to show off some of the actual story elements I hope to implement, but until then, I thank you for joining me on this journey, and I will see you in 2 weeks for another devlog.